Hi everybody, it's 314 React here. Today we're going to be looking at Doom Eternal with ray tracing. Again, I've looked at this before, but today I'm going to be looking at it with the new settings that I found out about the other month, which are the material settings and the extra bounce light settings. So first off, you want to go to reshade.me and download the very latest version of Reshade, which is 4.82 as of the 31st of December 2020. Once you've got that downloaded, you then want to go to this link here, which is in the description, which is also on reshade.me. It's in the forum, which goes over the ray tracing shader within Reshade. It goes over installation and it goes over how to get it. You need to sign up to Mike McFly or Pascal's Patreon, which is linked in here. You need to sign up for that. And once you've signed up for that, it'll allow you access to their Discord, where you'll be able to go on and get the latest betas of the RTGI shader. Once you have both of those downloaded, you want to navigate to where Doom Eternal is installed, which for me is Steam Apps Common, Doom Eternal. And you want to note down that address, and then you want to open up Reshade Setup 482. Just want to run that. You want to click here, select game, and manage its Reshade installation. Go to Browse. You want to put the address in the top bit there, and you want to select Doom Eternal x64vk.exe, click open, click Vulkan, select the first page of all the shaders, hit OK, and just wait for that to install. And then when that's done, you can then move that down here because we'll need that a bit later. You want to open up the latest Reshade GI beta 0.19.zip, and you just want to go into Reshade-shaders, which is the new folder in the Doom Eternal folder, and just drag those two folders over, and you should be ready to go. There's also another file that I like to throw in, which is a file called QUINT-dither, which can be gotten from the Discord. I think if you ask someone in the betas section, they'll be able to give you it, or in the general section, they'll be able to give you it. But I don't think it's actually necessary for the RTGI shader. It's just something I like to throw in just for the sake of it. But I don't think you really need to worry about it, because I've been playing this earlier today, and I don't have that file in there. Once that's been installed, you're almost ready to go. What you need to do is this setup here. You need to click on Enable, Disable Reshade in Vulkan globally, and then let it do its thing. Tick that box, and then you're ready to go. And you need to leave this open because that's the only way Reshade can work on Vulkan games. If you don't do this, it won't work in Doom Eternal. The extra little thing I want to do to enable the extra settings on Reshade is to go to the default preset INI, which gets generated when you first boot up the game, and that is in the preprocessor definitions, and you put in material type equals 1 and infinite bounces equals 1. So I was told about this by one of the developers of Reshade, and this allows you to adjust the roughness of the material and the specular levels of material, so you can get everything to look a lot more reflective using the ray tracing shader. And infinite bounces allows you to adjust the next bounce weight. I'm not quite sure if it is actually infinite bounces, but I do know that it unlocks a setting that allows you to give a little bit more adjustment to how the ray tracing looks and works. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I'm going to demonstrate the sort of effect it has when you tweak it. So with all that set up, you should be ready to dive into Doom Eternal. So once you're in game, you press home and the menu appears, and then in the search bar you can just type in RTG and you can see RT Global Illumination there. If you check that and then expand this area down below, you can see all the settings and you're ready to go. What I also like to do is to go into settings here and have an effect toggle key. For me it's numpad plus, just so you can switch the effect on and off nice and easily. And now we're ready to go into the game. Alrighty, so here we are in game, running at 4K, running about 70 frames a second. Let's take a look at some of the settings we've got. We've got ray length at 5, which seems to be good for this game. Setting it any higher, things start to look a bit weird. And setting it any lower, it completely removes the effect. So I've left that as it is. Yeah, because there's like too much blue lighting flying from these areas down here, if that too high up. So 5 seems to be the magic spot for that. And then there's a new setting called Extended Ray Length Multiplier, which according to the description increases ray length in the background to achieve ultra wide light bounces. So cranking this too high up again has a similar effect. It can help out with how much lighting is flying around. I've set it to 0.5 because it does tend to sharpen up shadows a little bit, give a little bit of extra detail in the shadows, but I don't want it too high. So 0.5 seems good there. Amount of rays I've set at 3. There's not much point in setting it any higher because it gives diminishing returns and really hits the frame rate. Amount of steps per ray I've got at 16. That keeps us at a nice 70 frames a second in this area. Could even turn that down a little bit and it probably wouldn't affect things too much. So I have amount of steps per ray to 8. Still looks pretty good, but we're now at 72 frames a second. We've got enable precise light spreading, enabling a simulation of backface lighting and alternate intersection test. Again, I've done these in other videos. These are settings that just really tidy up the look of the ray tracer, but don't really affect the frame rate. The material settings, I've left specular at 1, set roughness to 3.2, so there are some reflections, but not too excessive. Ambient occlusion is at 5.5, just to give enough ambient occlusion on the weapons here and in the distance. Bounce lighting intensity is at 3, just to not be too excessive. And next bounce weight is at 0.04, just to give a little bit of extra bounce to the lighting. Again, you send that up too high and things get too bright, so something you don't want to mess around with too much, so just leave it at 0.004, and then we go back to the normal channel. And yeah, so this is on a RTX 3090 of 4K, so if we turn the effect off, it goes up to 98 frames a second, and the whole game pretty much runs like that. If we turn the effect back on, it takes down to 72, so we're still running at a good frame rate, but it does take a good few frames off, even off of a 3090. The 3090 certainly crunches it pretty damn nicely. So if we go forward here, you can see the effect in the ground here. This works really well on metallic surfaces. I haven't really tried it on non-metallic surfaces yet, but at the moment, this really enhances the look of metal. As you can see, the reflection of the ammo there. You turn the effect off, and you see the reflection of the ammo disappear in the ground and from the box here. There's a bit in game of the reflection, a bit of SSR, but it's not too noticeable. Having this on just gives it that little bit of extra depth, a little bit of extra shadowing underneath it as well, as you can see there. Also a bit of extra bounce lighting coming from the green here, going down there. Same story here with the fuel can. Looks very flat without it, and then when you crank it on, adds that depth, adds that shadowing, reflections, just looks extremely nice. The gun looks a lot better as well with the extra ambient occlusion on it. Just added extra bits of shading, as you can see under here and under here, where you see the light would be occluded from these parts of the gun. So it just adds that little bit of extra detail. Same for this little health file. Just the shadowing and depth around the base of it there. So as we come through into this area, we've got, again, health files on the ground here. Looking really, really nice. If we turn the effect off, you lose that shadowing from the chairs, even on the desk there as well. The extra reflections from the desks on the ground. And even that little cup on the left there. Even makes the liquid inside look a little bit brighter. A little bit more light bouncing around in there. Really nice effect. You can even see a reflection of the door on the ground here. You can see the SSR from the game. And then there's also a bit of extra lighting from the ray tracer. Bit of extra detail around the door there. Instead of just being like shading around there, it's actually adding a bit of bounce lighting, so you got a bit of red lighting in there. Again, same for these rockets in the ground. Very nice effect. There's still a bit of blur because of the anti-aliasing, but it's not too noticeable. It's only because it's temporal anti-aliasing. Got the keycard floating here. You've even got a shadow coming from the keycard here, which is not present in the normal game. It's not entirely accurate, but it still looks pretty cool. We've also got a bit of extra lighting in the ground there. So here we are, engaged in some combat. And it's still running 70 to 80 frames a second, which is really, really nice. So, obviously with a lesser graphics card, it's going to struggle a bit more. But I imagine any of the 3000 series is going to run this pretty nicely. Especially lower than 4K. If you're at 1080 and you've got like a 3070 or something, that should be fine. Before on my 2080, I was getting like down to 40s, 30s sort of frame rate with the effect on. So it's good to see that my new graphics card keeps the frame rate above 60 on most games with Reshade. Which is really, really nice. So we've got an empowered demon here, so... Let's see if I can freeze him. There we go. The extra reflections of the ground really bring out the extra colours in the game that are present in Doom Eternal, like all the pickups and stuff. It's also adding quite a lot of extra ambient occlusion depth to the monsters and stuff. We'll switch to the lighting channel in a second. So if we go lighting channel, you can see in the lighting channel it makes things look a bit polygonal with the specular reflections. So it kind of looks a bit like Super Hot. but you can see where all the effect is going. So you can see the extra lighting there, the reflections in the ground, the shadowing from that cybermanculus, and all the extra detail on the actual model itself, which just looks really phenomenal. Whoa, there we go. So you can just see the reflections on the ground there from that Dread Knight. Really cool. Just need to grab some good screenshots. Oh yeah. Hopefully not die. Let's do that. So far I haven't seen the frame rate dip below 60, which is really good. And yeah, there are extra reflections on this metal, especially with the raininess of this level. Certainly looks fitting for the level. Like I said, a level that's a bit more grounded or made of stone might not work so. So we check out this area with the effect on, and then switch it off. And back on. Could say the shadowing is maybe a bit too excessive, so maybe I'll turn the ambient occlusion down just a bit. 4. And turn it off, and then back on. I think that looks pretty good. Alrighty, so that is Doom Eternal's new DLC with the new RTGI settings on the first level of the DLC. Let's load up a level from the main game and see how a different style of level looks with the same settings. Alright, so let's check out Exaltia, which should have a lot more stone and earthy effects on it. So we'll see how the reflections work in that with the ray tracing. Alrighty, so it looks pretty good so far. Let's turn the effect off here. Back on. See, this is where it could be a little bit excessive. So it doesn't look quite right on those models there. But the ground is naturally wet in these areas, so that kind of makes sense if it's a bit more reflective. Oh, wow. Okay, so one of the cheats I've got on, I think gives it like the Sentinel armor, and that makes the HUD very, very green on the outside. And the HUD, the way Screen Space RTGI works, the HUD is taken into account. So it's got this like green effect all over it. So that's not great. I've still not managed to figure out a way to get UI detect to work. UI mask creator. Okay, so you have to like manually block out this area here. But then the trouble is, if you're manually blocking out this sort of area, so if we block out the green UI here, in theory that means any and all lighting from that area is not going to affect anything. Yeah, I think the best way to deal with this is to just turn off the cheat for the Sentinel armor. Okay, so here we are again. And yep, the green stuff is gone. There's still some oddities there. See a slight bit of the UI reflecting. I'm not even sure what part of the UI that is that's reflecting. I think it's the health. So this level looks incredible. And that extra shading. See, I can see the trouble here. You can see the polygon edges. I think because either ambient occlusion's too high or the roughness is too low. I think it's because the roughness is too low. So having the roughness down to like 60 on a metallic-y sort of level is fine because it's quite square geometry and it's quite a lot of reflections anyway that you'd expect in metal. But when it's a more rocky area like this, it seems to be the magic spot is above 90. Pretty much 1, yeah. So it still looks really good, so we turn the setting off and then back on. Still adding a lot of cool depth and extra lighting, but if you turn the roughness down too low, yeah, that's where the illusion starts to fall apart a bit. Which is a shame, because the reflections could look really cool on some parts of this level. Obviously not most of it though, because most of it's stone. It's because there's no way for the Reshade to know what materials are what, so it just treats them all the same. So I imagine it would be a good idea to set up like another preset up here. One for more metallic-y, less natural areas, and then one that you can switch to for more natural areas like this, where the roughness can be cranked up. I'll link my previous video down below where I've looked at Reshade with ray tracing on Doom Eternal, and that'll pretty much have the same settings as this. They're probably a bit toned down now. You can see how on like the metal bits here, you can see how it looked kind of cool. Because obviously you'd expect the metal to actually be reflecting quite a bit. But then as soon as you go to like the more stony areas, it still looks kind of cool because it's a kind of wet environment, but it just looks too shiny for stone. And even if you crank it up to like 85, so you can just get, or 80, so you can just get a bit of that reflection. As soon as you look down to any sort of rocky areas, it starts to fall apart just a little bit. And we're especially noticing here the temporal anti-aliasing is really causing a lot of noise in that grass there. So yeah, if we go over to the lighting channel, you can see the grass very noisy there. But you can see all the extra lighting there that's happening, and does add a lot to the scene, especially with the grass there. The grass just looks really flat without it, and then you switch it on, it just looks a lot better, hell of a lot better. So I'd say it's definitely worth turning off the temporal anti-aliasing. It's not too bad because there's not so much grass in this game. With Horizon Zero Dawn, without the temporal anti-aliasing switched off, it was just blurry all over, which was horrendous. So let's check out another level. Let's check out a level that's a bit more meaty and a bit more wet, and see how that reacts with the roughness levels. And that is going to be the Super Gore Nest. So as you can see, there's a lot of stone and stuff, and there is quite some complex geometry around, but it doesn't seem to be as affected as Exaltia was, except these areas down there. But even that's not too noticeable. And the stone that we do see is often covered with blood and gore, so any sort of reflections seen should look relatively reasonable. This should also be a good test for the frame rate as well. So let's get the old chain gun out. Still at 70 frames, 65 there. Oh, see that area there, that's where it looks a bit horrible. But again, not too noticeable, not too bad. Oh, just dipped slightly below 60 frames a second there. Just slightly. Oh boy. Yeah, still perfectly playable. It's probably running about as well on my 3090 with ray tracing on as it did on my 2080 with ray tracing off. Which just goes to show how ridiculously powerful the 3090 is. Still 75 frames. Seems to be only in the most extreme circumstances where it drops. So this area looks pretty good. So we turn the effect off. Oh wow, yeah, okay. And back on. You can really see it's adding a lot of extra color to that flesh. Tons of extra, like, shading around it and lighting from the ambient occlusion. It actually makes it look really good. And it makes the blood look a lot better as well. That's really nice. So if we go to the lighting channel. Oh wow, yeah, you can see everything that it's doing there. I think the level of specular is just making it look so much more wet and disgusting. And that is just perfect. So if we go down to the roughness, move that around, so we can turn that roughness all the way down, and that's when it's a bit too reflective, but still. Oh yeah, it's definitely, again, it's got that super hot effect again. This area here with all the water and blood and gore everywhere. Let's turn the effect off, and then turn it back on. And what I'm really interested to do is to go to the big area on this level and see how the frame rate is there. Alright, so here we are, the big area. Now, on my 2080, it was probably running even less frames than this without any sort of ray tracing on. So again, it's what we've noted earlier, that the 3090 with ray tracing on, which is really heavy stuff, still runs faster than a 2080 at 4K without any Reshade ray tracing. Which again is just an example of how absurdly powerful this card is and how crazy the 3000 series is. I'll be interested to see how the Radeon cards handle this as well. And if we turn the ray tracing off, yeah, it's like 100 frames a second solid. So it's even smoother. Oh man, that's nice. I'll do some comparison shots in a second. You can really feel the difference between 70 frames and like 98 frames. Really can. Like 60 to 100 is a huge difference. You can just feel the frame time like lag. Whoop. So here we are. This with the effect on. Let's turn the effect off. Oh yeah. Back on. Again, it's just adding a huge amount of glow from that lava. If you go to the lighting channel. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It looks pretty damn sweet. Let's turn the effect off. And then back on. Okay, I'm going to try out one more level with these settings. So let's check out Urdak. So Urdak is a really bizarre, quasi-HR Giga-ish, futuristic, technological, but also kind of biological nightmare realm. Reflectivities or roughness isn't too... So it seems here that roughness 60 is almost too low, and it needs to be cranked down to like 30 to get reflectivity coming through. So this could be like another preset required. Similar story with the frame rate from about 9800 to a 70. So it adds a lot of really nice shading in there. But you do have to crank that roughness setting down. So this is where I crank it down too far and it just looks way too shiny. Does look cool though. See, that actually looks pretty sweet. But I imagine that's probably too much, as if they wanted the game to look like that, they would have put in a lot more screen space reflections on the ground. So it's probably worth leaving that at around 60. Man, this game looks crazy good, even without any reshade stuff applied. So the ground here is quite reflective already. You can kind of see they've got an environment map there. So, and there's, yep, screen space reflections in game. So this is where, again, having that roughness level at 60 works nicely along with the game. Not too much different on that gold bit, which I'm grabbing onto. Although you can see the light bouncing from the gold plate that my character's holding onto. And you can see it's adding an additional glow to their hand, which looks really cool. So this is where it's starting to remind me of like the inside of a Covenant ship on Halo. So this with the effect off. Let's turn the effect on. And again, it's just adding lots of lighting, especially these bits. Like the gold and red bits there with the bounce lighting. Adding so much definition to that geometry. That looks really nice. Really good. Just really brings a lot of that lighting to life. It's so nice, especially on those stairs there. That sort of extra lighting bouncing from those trees.
Welcome, Seraphim.
Let's turn the effect off during the cutscene. And back on.
You cannot stop the procession.
Ooh. That's some nice extra lighting and shading on the icon of sin there.
We will not be able to control it. No!
Just love the color in this game. Such a gorgeous game engine. I really hope they officially put ray tracing in it at some point. Now that Vulkan RT has been finalized and can now run not only using Nvidia's own extensions on it, but also on AMD cards, it'd be really cool to see a ray traced version, fully ray traced version of Doom Eternal. Because if you had reflections and global illumination, ambient occlusion all being handled by hardware ray tracing, this game would look even better. And given the level of optimizations that id Software put into it, it would probably run pretty damn amazing as well. So yeah, that is Reshade Ray Tracing on Doom Eternal with their RTX 3090. Runs really, really nicely, really smoothly. But like I say, it probably needs two settings, two INI files. One with a higher roughness value or materials for more natural and rocky areas. And one with the lower roughness level for the more technological areas. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. Tick the little bell, really helps out the channel. Hope you have a good new year. Hopefully 2021 is a year where things turn around a little bit. Hope you're all staying safe, and I'll see you in the next video.